A journey from grief to great. Hi, my name is Jackie, and I appreciate you being here with us. The following is an excerpt from the first session in a coaching series for a group of employees. Please take a few minutes to hear my story, which I hope will inspire you in some way or another.
A little bit more about my story. Okay, so I went to college at W&J, which is in Washington, PA, around here for accounting. And then I was doing mortgages for a few years. And then the market crashed really bad in about 2007, 2008. And then I landed at a company called Crown Castle. They do cell phone towers and fiber optics. And I was there for years and years and years in lots of different roles. Real, corporate doing data accounting. Eventually, I was a manager leading people. We were buying up companies. I worked on stuff that had to do with that. And then 2019, my dad came down with lung cancer. And then right around that same time, my mom went into the hospital and came out with oxygen. She wasn't doing well. My parents are divorced. Since my brother lives in Virginia, I was taking care of both of them. Neither of them are remarried. And I had my mom living with me for a couple months. I was trying to take care of her. I don't know if any of you have ever taken care of, an elderly person, but it was very difficult for me, one of the hardest times in my life, because she had dementia symptoms and she thought I was just trying to control her when I was just trying to get her to take her medicine and eat right. And we butted heads my entire life. So eventually she wanted to go back home. So she was with me for a couple months and I had to be okay with letting her go back home, knowing that I couldn't really take care of her, with me living in one place and her in another. We thought she was okay though, but a couple months later she passed away. So that was October of 19. So that was really, really hard for me. And then COVID hit. And with my dad having cancer, I was being extra careful because I'm a single lady, never been married, no kids. I have 3 cats. So I was working from home, just like COVID isolation. So on top of my grief, and I'm very extroverted. So that was tough for me being at home by myself in my grief. So I fell into like a really, really dark place during COVID. And then come the spring of 21, it was time for all of us to get our vaccines if we wanted to. So I scheduled my vaccine and then did the math, right? Like a couple weeks later, you get your second shot, and then maybe like 10 days later, you're immune. So as soon as I scheduled my vaccine, I scheduled a trip to the beach. I was like, I'm going to the beach. I need to get out of here. Like, I deserve this. I booked a hotel and that was it. I was like, I'm just going to pack my car and go by myself and it's going to be awesome. And that's what I did. And while I was at the beach, I had what I now know as a spontaneous spiritual awakening. So I wasn't ever religious or spiritual before that, besides wanting to connect with my mom. Because also I didn't mention my mom's brother suddenly passed away a day and a half after she did. So that was like shocking to all of us too. So, it was hard to grieve for both of them, for the whole family. So yeah, basically, excuse my language, the shit went down in Myrtle Beach. It culminated at the end of that week. I was on the beach for sunrise, just jamming to some music. There was a woman with a cute little dog. I ran up to her. I was like, "Oh my God, your dog's so cute." And she was like, "I saw you yesterday. I knew we were going to talk." She was like, "I'm a shaman. I think you're a shaman." I was like, "What is that?" And we ended up talking for like 3 hours on the beach that morning. I went back to my room, like, what the heck just happened? Like, I shared my whole life story with her. She's like, "I see you in a crystal shop and you need some rose quartz." And she described this woman and this man. And so I get back to my room and I was drinking the night before and I was like, what just happened? Like, was that a dream? Like, what is going on? So I got ready and I wanted to hit up this boutique all week. And I'm like, I'm going to go to the boutique. And I'm like, let me just see if there's crystal shops. And there was like a dozen of them. And I picked the one near the boutique that I wanted to go to. And by the way, the shaman lady, it was just a regular lady, like in a t-shirt, probably about a decade younger than me, like not any like indigenous looking person, just another person. So she told me to take deep breaths before I go in the crystal shop. So I go to this crystal shop. I forgot to do that. I walk in, there's a bell. And then I'm like, oh no, I forgot to take deep breaths. So I walk out, it rings again. And then I take my deep breaths. I walk in. At this point, like I couldn't even breathe. This woman starts walking to me and she's exactly what the shaman lady described. And I was just like, oh my God, what's going on? I was like, I don't know what's going on. I met this lady on the beach. You're exactly what she said that I was going to see here. And the woman's like, this is my shop. And then her husband comes out. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Shaman lady said I need a rose quartz. So eventually I go over. They had this huge like sphere of rose quartz, a $10,000 sphere. It was like in a crate the size of like an end table, like beside your couch kind of table, huge sphere. And I bent down and touched it, and my heart started pounding, and I started crying, and I ran in the bathroom, and I was like, "What the hell's going on?" And the lady's like, "Honey, do you need some water?" And she sat down and talked to me, and here there was going to be tarot readings the next day, and all these synchronicities started happening. So, that was the beginning of when the shit really started going down. I don't know if that woman like activated me or something. So I came home and the next day I felt like there was light beaming out of my chest. And I don't know if you know the movie Coming to America. I hear in my head, let your soul glow. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And probably about a week later, I ended up taking short-term disability from my job because I was like, what the hell's going on? Because a lot of really wild stuff started happening after that. And I was just trying to figure out what's going on. And I knew that I needed to heal, right? Because I was in this deep, dark place, with the grief and the COVID. So I just spent the summer in my backyard, reading books and watching YouTube videos about spirituality and healing. I was writing letters to people. I was doing a cognitive behavioral therapy workbook and just trying to figure out what was going on and make myself come to a better place. And that was in 2021. So I went back to work and then I started picking up little crystals here and there along the summer. And then I found crystal wholesale buying. And I realized there was a big difference in wholesale pricing and retail pricing. So I started buying and buying and buying and buying, and boxes were filling my house, filling my house. By the spring of 22, they were boxes in every single room of my house. I was trying to sell the crystals out of my third bedroom, tripping over everything. And I knew for the longest time that corporate work wasn't for me anymore, that it just wasn't. And eventually, come that spring, I worked through a lot of financial fears, right? Like needing the security of a good job. I had a really good job, I was making really good money, but I knew like it was soul sucking. At one point, I actually told my boss, I said, this job's getting in the way of my spiritual ascension. And he just started laughing. He's like, I don't know what to say. So eventually I had, excuse my language, a shit or get off the pot moment. It was like time, like this was the moment I had to do it. And so I put in my resignation and opened a crystal shop with all my crystals. So I've been selling the crystals since it's been what year is it? Almost 2 years now. But I believe that my job really is to help people. So when I got home, I dug into shamanism, and it's basically like going into another state of consciousness to have visions and receive information from spirits or whatever And I was easily having those experiences, and they were some of the most profound experiences of my life. And the first one, I realized that I could, and I could pull myself up out of my darkness. And then I turned around and started pulling other people up out of the darkness into the light. So I feel like that's what my job is. And I've just gained so much information that I've been sharing with people that I've learned to make my life better, to give me more happiness and joy and peace and satisfaction and fulfillment. And Kevin and I are in BNI together, and we have very similar energy. So we've really connected. And I told him that I started doing coaching, one-on-one coaching with people to help them with their mindset. And he's like, why don't you come talk to my team? He's like, I'd love you to talk to my team and share some stuff with them. And so that's why and how I got here. That's my story.